Are you kind of embarrassed of your website? And does it kind of feel of smelly old papers? Well, are people saying kind of bad things about your brand? It might be time to update it, and it's important for converting better. We're going to talk today about the importance of creating a brand guide, how to hire a design team and that has expertise in what you should be looking for in them. We're going to talk about redesigning wellness brand logo and design wellness packaging, as well as a hotel website. The elements that you need to have in all of these on this Garlic Marketing Show with Blaire Brown. Blaire, say hi.
Hi.
And before we get started, of course, this is brought to you by videocasestory.com. The rest of your online presence needs to be great too, and YouTube is a great way to do it. If you want to learn how to close more clients using the fish in the barrel strategy and learn how many you can get, go to videocasestory.com/FIB. We've got an analyzer there. I'll show you the hundreds of thousands of dollars you're missing. All right, let's get started talking about branding on the Garlic Marketing Show.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
I think a lot of people don't see bad design. And if they're looking at their stuff and don't know it's bad design, they don't know it, but their customers feel it. Mm-hmm. And I want you to show us what makes a good design, what makes a good messaging online, and some examples. But before we get into that, and so people can convert more clients, because it's critical. I wanted to make one side note about this, folks. I've seen so many websites where I'm always surprised that the person is in business because the website looks so old. And I'm expecting, like, when I go to their office, when I used to go to offices, that like they would have like panel wood up and it would smell like old paper because their website would look so old. And you helped fix that. Tell us a little bit about your services and what you do before we get into you telling us about unicorns and handbags.
I appreciate the setup there. So I own Visionary Advantages, and what we do is we help those brands that look like you can smell the terrible paper and the wood walls that you just explained. Basically, brands come to us a few years into their business. Maybe it's 2 or 3 years. Sometimes it's 25. But what we find common throughout any industry is that these brands are, while they might be crushing it behind the scenes, making really cool products or have really cool services that are professional for their audience, they're not showing it online. They just have focused on that for so long that they forgot, and they turn around, look at their web presence, and they go, oh, that doesn't look like us. That's embarrassing. And common things that they're going to be saying is, please don't look at my website. It's embarrassing. I haven't updated it in forever. Or the most common probably for the younger businesses would be, well, I DIY'd it and I've been meaning to get to it. So those kinds of things are so common. So if you're imagining that right now, that's normal. But it's so critical that you come in and you look at it. You have somebody with fresh eyes, a professional who can make you look as awesome as you are. Because ultimately, when you're having these conversations, networking with people, going to events, emailing them even because they look at the tail end of your email address and they're going to your website, that's going to tell them everything. And you don't want it to be the everything they see if it's outdated, scary looking. You want it to look as awesome as you. So we go in and we'll give those facelifts per se to brands, bring it to life, and then we make sure that they're visible and easier to close sales, essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, I talk about this all the time because I call it the fish in the barrel strategy, because you've met these people, and where they're going to learn more about you is online, and they're going to your website and through your website, and now they're having a second thought about working with you, or they refer to you, or they refer to your business, and it looks like maybe it is closed, or or it's not great. So before we get into how to transform this and figure that out, we need to know about the purses and the handbags and the unicorns.
I know. It sounds like a fairy tale whenever you just lay it out like that. But so a little bit about my background. I've always been an entrepreneur. I honestly can't even help it at this point. I hailed from a family of entrepreneurs. So in my family, it's very common to just come up with a business idea and we all hype each other up and support it. And I'm very blessed to have that kind of support because it's not common.
Yeah.
So back in the day, 100 years ago, whenever I was 16 years old, every girl at school was carrying Louis Vuitton and Coach handbags. And I was 16. I can't afford that. My parents weren't about to buy it for me. So since I know how to sew, since the second grade, I decided to make my own. And so I made my own handbags. People at school were complimenting them. Teachers were, strangers at Starbucks, all these people. And I went to my parents one day and I said, I think this could be something. Can I borrow $300, go to Joann's fabric store and start a purse company? And they looked at each other and they looked at me and they're like, yes, of course. And so I did that and I owned that company for 8 years, which is a long time for someone at that age. I
Yeah.
loved it.
That's amazing. And yeah, what made you leave it?
Well, it did do very well. It was actually it was recognized by the Olsen twins back in their heyday, so I was pretty pumped about that. But what made me leave it was I started fashion school in New York. By the time I was 24, I was trying to figure out how to scale it, and I didn't have the resources to go into manufacturing and figure that out on a bigger scale. So since I didn't have the know-how in that area, I was like, well, I'm going to have to shift this and put close the business and essentially go into corporate because that's what they tell you you should want to do. And so went into the corporate fashion world for several years, worked in branding, marketing, PR, and fashion journalism for quite a few big fashion brands. Loved being creative, loved that aspect of it. Something was always off and I didn't know what it was until one day my mom called me. She goes, hey, I've been watching these YouTube videos about starting Amazon FBA business. And I said, Mom, you're watching YouTube videos? You're so hip. Like, who are you? And I looked into it since I have a bit of a product development background. I thought, well, I can do this. And for anybody who's not familiar with Amazon FBA, Amazon has a million different business categories. But what this is it gives people like you and I the opportunity to have a business on Amazon. So, but we have to do all the middleman work overseas or wherever you're manufacturing. And so we figured out all the design, creation, shipping from China to the US and then Amazon takes it from there. So that way you don't have thousands of product in your tiny Manhattan apartment, which would have been my scenario, but thankfully dodged that. So, but we went into business together. We sold out in 2 years. I juggled that business while I was in corporate. And then when we sold out, we decided to discontinue that business. And for me, the biggest aha moment was, wow, if I have this much joy selling unicorn party supplies, it is not the party supplies. It's having my own company and everything else that goes into it. And so that's when I realized, okay, I need to just figure out what business I'm going to do and just go all in. And so here we are.
Here we are. And obviously you have a background in design, branding, fashion. And so tell me a little about the clients you work with now. And you said, the age old brands. And what are some of the signs that, someone needs to change their brand around?
Sure. So we work with all kinds of brands. We work with solopreneurs that are business coaches. We work with CPG brands. We work with boutique hotels. It goes across the board. But where they all come to at some point in their business lifespan is when they get to that point of we realize that our brand needs an update. We've been told this by our vendors that we're working with. It could be, big box retailers. It could be their customers, or maybe they're just personally embarrassed by how dated it looks. And then they realize, we're doing all these cool things. We just now need the professional touch. We've DIY'd it for long enough. Now is the time where, okay, I might not be a designer, says the business owner. I need to have a designer come in there and help. So I have a team of specialists in each area. We can help with design, we do development, we have SEO specialists, web developers, we have the whole team. So that way, when you're putting a brand together like the way that we do, and when you're in that scenario, you need all of the people that are experts in their areas to work together as a team. You're going to have a better success outcome. So I'd say if you've DIY'd it up to a point where now you know your audience, your offer is set, you're seeing success out of your business, you need to really then look at your web presence and see how cohesive it looks as a whole, and look at it as a sales tool and how can we get you to that next level. It builds trust. So
Yeah, 100%. And I like that you're talking about the whole web presence, because I think so many people think of every piece as separate, right? And they're like,
yeah,
well, this is my Facebook website or my Facebook, and this is my Instagram. Maybe I've copied the same stuff over there, and then my website's over here, and that's I've got someone else running that, but I've got people for each of them.
right.
How important is it, and how do you think about it to make it cohesive?
Well, I'd say get the foundation set first. The most cohesive way you can operate is, you said how there's all these different teams, right? But if you can all work from the same resource, like a brand guide, for example, that is where I would start. We always advise anybody who's going through this brand transformation, start with a logo. If you're a heritage brand and you don't want to change your logo, that's fine too, but you still need a brand guide because that's going to dictate, your colors. You're not going to use 50 shades of orange or something. You want to make sure you're using this same shade every time. That's going to keep consistency. Whether you do have an in-house person doing social media, they're going to use the same one as your web designer. You want to make sure your whole team is using this as a tool and a guide. It's going to outline your graphic files, your fonts. What does it look like as an example for social media? Keeping that as it's called a brand guide, keeping it as a guide in your compass is going to make your web presence much more successful as a whole. So definitely start there and then build everything off of that.
And so, can you show us a few examples of how you've done this and some of the people that you've transformed?
I love to show Hideaway Inns. So Hideaway Inns is a gorgeous, gorgeous brand. They are a boutique brand hotel, and what we did with them is we helped them with their hotel. We came up with the whole vibe of the brand. It's targeting a younger audience. It's called Hideaway, so we could be playful with the language. We map out the different logos. How does that look? Is it one size fits all? We always like to design where it fits across. So basically, we wanted to show, what is the energy of this brand, right? It's a new hotel. It has vintage meets modern type of vibe, but it's a younger audience. They have digital first check-ins. Their logo that we designed fits in different sizes, so that way you're not stuck with just one size that fits all, which comes in handy whenever you're a brand. You need it to be very versatile. We're going to map out what it looks like on different colored backgrounds. What does it look like with a location in its place? Social media icons, the spacing, and then I'm going to skip even how not to use it. Also very important. I will say from other brands have come to us with, I'm not exaggerating whenever I say sometimes they'll have 34 different logos and they'll be using all of them. So, think of this as you're handing this off to anybody. How can we make your branding foolproof for that person who might not be a designer to follow it? So, again, we mentioned.
I love that. Yeah, that's.
Yeah. I use the word number 34 because a different brand I worked with, I counted 34 logos, and then don't you know that same brand, after we did their guide, they said, "Can we use purple on a very much not purple brand?" And I said, "No,
No,
please don't." But what's the opacity, right? Like how much of orange should we do? again, it's just every detail counts. And I'm going to scroll through and you can see like how we put fonts together. We have icons, and what are those used for, you ask? You can use
Yeah.
them all over your website, flyers, social media. We even map out scribble elements. So no, like truly there's no detail that's too small. We come up with patterns, and whether they're going to create a website with us or not, we're going to map out what the website could potentially look like. Like, what are just different section ideas, for example? Because again, we want them to be a success as the next step for what is coming next, right? And
Yeah.
naturally, it's a website. But I want to pause here for a second because everybody always loves a merch moment. So even brands that might not necessarily create merch, I think merch is always important for a brand guide just because it really creates that personality. And at my company, we love to put as much personality as we can into a brand because I think what we're losing today with AI is that authenticity and personality. And so if we can incorporate that by showing some merch examples, kind of bring it to life, like what could they be doing with that? You know, I think that just brings it another element of excitement and carves out who this brand is. So we're really proud of how this one turned out. And this is a brand that came to us with not even a name yet. Like, well, we had a working in progress, and then we were able to come up with this. So this is a fun one.
How do you make the decisions about opacity, those types of things? And what guides that?
Honestly, I probably just the aesthetic. How does it sit well to each next to each other? What is this brand going to be using it for in real life? And I think we really take all the onboarding, and whenever we onboard with our clients, we really get to know them personality wise, and we think about the future of this. How is it going to evolve? What makes it look modern? What makes it look nostalgic? And then we just take those design principles, and that's ultimately where we make those decisions: is where are they going, who is their audience, what's going to resonate the most, and how can we achieve that. So I think that is probably how we determine the opacity.
No, it makes sense. And now, I mean, obviously, AI branding. People are going. I'm just going to go get AI to do the branding for me and go to Canva. What's right about that, and what's wrong about that?
Listen, if you are just starting out as a brand, go to Canva. It's fine. You know what I mean? Like if you have never started a business before and you just need something to get going, I want you to get going. I think what you should do though is, we work with the brands that have DIY'd and they're ready to level up, because then they know their audience, they know their offers, and then that's when you should invest in a professional to take over. So that's kind of the do's of it, I would say, for Canva. Um, but the don'ts, I'd say, for AI and Canva are when you are at that professional level. AI sites, they're AI sites. I'm
Yeah.
sure in your brain, just me saying this, you can picture it.
Yep.
Uh, you can tell whenever a real designer has put their touch on a brand and injected your personality as a brand into it. It just makes it special. It's personalized. It's going to connect more with your consumer. And so if you are doing something with AI, you're not going to get that same connection.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, it's taking the time to understand the consumer, and also, like I think like the answering the opacity question, it's what AI can't do. It's the feel, it's the human experience, it's understanding people, connecting to it. I think that's really where it comes in. And when you have these existing brands, another thing is what when it comes to logo design, because I'm like, for me, logo design is one of those things that can be I've been in some horrible logo design meetings where people are just like, everyone wants to put everything into it. What do you feel are the biggest mistakes you're seeing right now in logo design for existing brands?
Oh, for existing brands. Um, yeah, I think being too trendy, I think that could be something that is a problem. Where I remember at one point, and it's still like a little bit being continued, where everybody was using, oh man, should I give examples? People are going to be like, oh, that's my logo. But there's some logos where it's like it had that little circle and it was like that touch of gold. There's some things like that where it's like everybody's using it. And then it becomes that Canva logo, like cliche. You don't want to become that cliche. I'd say that's a no bueno logo move. Um, and I just think sometimes it's better if you can uh, maybe have more meaning behind it. I think that's always a good thing to think about too. Maybe there's like secret elements that at first glance you don't see it, but then you see it afterwards. You're like, oh, it's smart design. So that's something I like about logo designs. You can be super playful and smart about it. It just depends, what are we trying to communicate to the audience?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think this is a point, folks. Like when you're hiring a great designer, you hire a designer and you listen to them too. Most people are not designers, right? Most people. I mean, I know I'm not. I'm horrible at it. I mean, I used to be able to draw, but it's like when I design something, even like it's like Homer's car he developed. I don't know if you ever saw that Simpsons where he put like everything in the kitchen sink. I do that. Um, so when it comes to hiring and listening to a designer, you want to obviously match opinions. What when you think of who should be hiring you, is there a certain style, a certain vibe, and how should someone be choosing their design slash overall experience director?
Sure, that's a great question, actually. To be honest, we've worked with all kinds of designs, even some. See, the thing is that it's great about having a design team is like it doesn't necessarily have to be my taste. Like it's not going to look like my wallpaper behind me right now. Like a SaaS company probably doesn't want that style. Or maybe they do. Good for them. But just because it's my style doesn't mean we're going to project that onto somebody else. I think the key to hiring a great designer or creative director is working with somebody who's going to listen, somebody who's asking you a lot of questions about your brand, and maybe even being like, asking things about their personal life, even like maybe it's like a smaller company and they want to incorporate things like that are a bit more personalized. We've put hidden family emblems and logos that we've made sometimes because that was important to them. So for me, it's just, I think hiring the right person is hiring somebody who's going to listen to you and doesn't necessarily project their styling on it unless the client says, I really love these styles that you've done, then cool, I'm going to lean into that and reference them. But we want to make sure it's uniquely them. And so I think that's just, and they need to be good at taking revisions, notes, because more than likely you're going to be collaborating on those notes here and there as you get that started. Because I'd say the logo is probably one of the most important pieces of getting your branding in place because everything stems off of that. So
Awesome.
definitely make sure that they're receptive.
Gotcha. And when it comes to logos and fonts, what's your least favorite font?
Ooh, oh man, a Comic Sans, that one. I hate that. That's like a no-brainer. But I like serif fonts with like serif. Somebody who doesn't know, I'm going to push up my imaginary nerd glasses. Is they have a little feet on the bottom. I love those. It has a little bit of like old school nostalgia sometimes if you design it the right way. So I like that. Um, can I actually show you one of our logos that we've done? I
Yeah.
think this one's a fun one. So I love this brand. And everybody, if you are in the market for outdoor stuff, you should definitely check them out. So, All Terrain. All Terrain's an amazing brand. They have a whole portfolio of um, outdoor products. And so with their logo, we had a lot of fun because they're essentially a heritage brand. They've been around for a long time, and they were ready to just update their portfolio main logo across the board. And then they have other products beneath this. But if you look at it, it's really cool because you'll see there's secretly an AT if you look at it closely for all
Mm,
terrain. But then you can also see a mountain and a tree as well. So it's
yeah.
one of those logos where it's there, but it might take a couple takes for you to get all of the details out of it.
Hmm.
So we're really proud of how this one turned out. And as far as before and afters, because I know we did talk about that, we designed this whole website too, by the way. Um,
Love it.
We added little custom icons here, which is
That's fun.
cool. So when we showed you that icon page for the other brand, we use it for that kind of elements. But if you look at this Herbal Armor bug spray, this is a before/current.
Mm-hmm.
And we have gone through. Do I get a drum roll, Ian?
Yes.
Perfect. This is going to be the new packaging that we designed.
Love
So
it.
very excited about that. So, we wanted the kids to be a little bit more playful. So we have it as a ombre gradient with the pop of yellow. And then you can just tell how this is definitely something where we went from an older styling to a more modernized look that fits their customer base in stores. So you can imagine somebody going to the store and picking this off the shelf. So
Yeah. No,
that's definitely a good point where people come in and that's when they're like, okay, let's elevate it and look like today's customer, because it is pretty common for brands to, you know, continue with what they've been doing. And then it just comes to a point where, all right, it's time to update. So that's where we come in.
well, that's fantastic. Well, this has been wonderful. And if someone wants to not have their brand smell like old paper anymore and bring it into the modern century and convert more clients, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure. Thank you. So you can visit visionaryadvantages.com and all my info is there, including social media. Or if you're just a social media person, just go to @Hey, it's Blaire Brown and send me a message. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. We'll put a link to all of that in the show notes. Blaire, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
And thank you all for making us part of your story. This has been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.